Welcome back to the RightWave Audio community. My name is John, and we're going to take another look at entry-level AV processors. And this time, where the criteria is models under $2,000. And we now know about the Iota VX. Now, it may have already been known to some of you, but it's fresh to us. We don't hear about this brand that much in the United States, where this channel is based of. And so we've recently become aware of the AVX17 processor that was introduced to the market last year at $1,927 US, and it is available to US markets. And we're going to look at this compared to others in this category. Now, this is the most expensive in the category, but we also have the ToneWinner, the AT300, which is just about $1,400 US, the Emotiva BasX MC1, which is $1,000. And just like we did about 5 weeks ago when we first looked at these entry-level processors, particularly looking at the Emotiva BasX MC1, we looked at the next tier up. And at that time, we looked at the Emotiva XMC2 and the Marantz AV7706, which just takes you over that $3,000 threshold. But to that, we're now adding the Anthem AVM70 because the AVX17 comes in as a 17-channel processor, and I wanted to have another 17-channel processor in comparison. So before we get into the details here, we're going to see how this affects our RightWave Audio database and our kind of look at 8K penetration to the market, which this doesn't make a dent into it because it's not an 8K processor. So we just tick up the number of brands, and I had to rejigger this whole matrix we have here to fit in Iota VX. So of its one models that it currently has active, they don't have 8K capability. So we're still looking at only 11 brands with 44 models that represent 35% of the processor receiver market out there today. So let's just move on and take a look at Iota VX. They came prior to this model with the AVX1, which was introduced in 2017. So this new model, the AVX17, replaces this. At that time, it was about $850. We usually see this in euro priced out, so I did the conversion, so roughly $850. But it was an 8-channel processor. And this might look familiar to you because we've seen other low-cost entry-level models at 8 channels. And I did some kind of historical research because this wasn't the first 8-channel product that was out there of the type. When the New Force AVP18 came out in 2013, it had an average price around $800 US, give or take. But it was an 8-channel model, and it's interesting because if you peel back the hood and look under this New Force product looks very similar to these new products we've seen come out in the last year that have more channels. It has a power supply towards the front on the left-hand side. The boards look very similar, the layout and everything. And then we look at the next thing that we saw come out that was similar, which was this Nakamichi, kind of in brand only processor, and the boards look similar there, although the layout in the back looks different. Then we saw Emotiva come out with the BasX MC700, also an 8-channel model, and the interior, and this was really clear, like the layout looks similar, but the boards look a little different. And then Iota AVX, the AVX1, all with a kind of a similar boards. If we understand correctly, these share the same factory, that this is probably all ToneWinner built out there that sharing the same designs. And what we understand is these manufacturers that are using this factory and this design can sit down and do a little customization. Of course, they're coming up with their own design language on the front of the product. They get some choices on what the I/O mix is going to be on the back, as long as it doesn't exceed the capabilities of the DACs and so forth that are inside the processing capability of the unit. And it can be all built off of the same platform, if you will. So you see a little customization. This is just not an exact copy with a new brand on it, but they do have their own characteristics. And we believe that what we're seeing now is the next generation of this platform with more channels. And so this range here, that was the first iteration of it. The Nakamichi model looks very similar to the Iota VX AVX1. So what's going on here? This is what we understand is the gentleman that started up Iota VX first came to market and licensed the Nakamichi name. I mean, if it's a new company, it's hard to get your name established, and they went to market this British company as Nakamichi on the products. And after a while, I guess it might have been expensive to license the Nakamichi name, and they decided to then go to market as Iota VX instead of Nakamichi. So now you've got the same physical cosmetics there. And so that's why those two products look the same on the front. And that's at least the way we understand it. And now we have the Iota VX, their next generation AVX17, which comes in at $1,927 US. It is available for purchase in the US, I understand. I think I've seen it on Amazon. And it's a 17 channel. This has got the most channels. It's also the most expensive of this derivative of this similar based product out there. So we're going to get into the details and find out what this is all about. But it is a handsome design. It does follow the same design language we saw in Nakamichi and the first Iota VX branded products. The remote looks like the ToneWinner one. We'll look at that again a little later. But we can see that there's XLR ports on the bottom of this. So we'd like to see that, although it's probably not truly fully balanced as some of the more expensive products are. On this new generation, and comparing it to the ones we did in the video 5 weeks ago, the ToneWinner AT300 and the Emotiva BasX MC1, you could see these things get a little taller as we go up in the channels, support going up with this AVX17. Now, we concluded that both the ToneWinner and the Emotiva were 14 channel models. Now, the Emotiva one doesn't have balanced outputs. They're all RCA connections on that model. But how are they coming up with 17 channels, which presumably they're using the same circuit board design? So what I believe they're doing is it's still only a certain level of processing, but they're giving you 4 replicated subwoofer outputs to come up with the 17 channels. But you can see here the layout on the back of these models are very similar. You can see that the Emotiva and the ToneWinner have a little antenna sticking up, but the Iota doesn't on that product. So these all came out about the same time last fall and 2021. So there's a the Iota is almost double what the Emotiva is in cost for the product. Now, looking inside deeper on this new generation, you can see that same type of board layout is shared. There might be some variations therein, but it is sharing technologies to a large extent. And then just to compare against the original Newforce from 2013, you can see that the basic design hasn't evolved too much from back in 2013. Now let's look at how those 17 channels are used with our overview that we always do here. And we can see that the Iota VX AVX17 is using a layout that can give you 7.4.6 or 9.4.4. So there is some trade-off. So if you look at our convention with the infographic here, the blue colored speaker channels, you're trading off between a middle row of height or top channels with surround front wides. Of course, Ripewave Audio feels that the front wides are the better choice in most cases than using the third set of top. Of course, that's all up to you and how you want to design your room there. So it is still 13.1 of decoding, just like the ToneWinner and the Emotiva, but you do get 17 physical outputs, and it is actually 17 channels of processing that it does, because in the manual, if we can believe the manual, it says it will independently do each of the 4 subwoofers. This is different than what it says in the ToneWinner documentation. Now, ToneWinner advertises 3 subwoofer outputs, but they're all wired in parallel. So it's really a .1 of processing versus the Iota, which is a full independent 4 channels. So this is really unique with the marketplace. And in fact, the Anthem AVM17, which is the top class where we're looking in here, is still only doing 2 channels of sub, and you have to move up to their AVM90, which is the only product I know, or the lowest cost product I know, that can do 4 independent subwoofer outputs. And that one, is a lot more expensive, double the cost of the AVM70. So to get 4 channels of processing, this is the lowest cost product out in the market that will do that. So this is exciting news. Other comparisons here. Now, the decoding capabilities between the ToneWinner, the Emotiva, and the Iota VX, these are all Dolby Atmos and DTSX. So you don't get any Aural 3D, and you don't get DTSX Pro with these models. Now, if you do want Aural 3D, your next choice up is the Marantz AV7706. Not only does it give you Aural 3D, but that's the only 8K model in our lineup. But you don't get as many channels of processing. You're down to 11.1 with 13 channels of processing. That's 2 independent subwoofers on the Marantz model. And it doesn't give you the front wide capabilities. This is the lowest cost, not only to give you the 4 channels of subwoofer outputs, but to give you the capability of doing front wides. So this is truly a game changer to at least get that price down for that capability. Obviously, the AVM70 gives you the full bore, front wides, gives you 6 channels on your top. So if you want no compromises, a true 9.2.6 system, you're into the AVM90. But it's interesting that Aural 3D is hard to find at these entry-level price points. Now, none of the under $2,000 models will give you a headphone jack on this or an AM/FM tuner. In fact, the Marantz is the only one with a built-in AM/FM tuner. All have an IEC power cord that's removable, which is great to see. Going, with our new category here, where we look at be able to handle both 110 and 220 volt signals. All these under 2000 models will auto switch the power depending on where you are in the world. And so can the Emotiva XMC2. Now it's interesting that Marantz and Anthem have gone to the fact that they're not using an auto switching supply, and you actually got to buy the model that's right for your region. So something to pay attention when you purchase these. As far as calibration, each model has their own brand on it. So Emotiva calls it EmoQ. ToneWinner just calls it ToneWinner calibration, and Iota VX is calling it EQ Flex. I suspect it's really the same thing with just different brands on it. Whatever the case is, this room calibration system does not get high praise. In fact, I had somebody just write in that just purchased, I believe it was an Emotiva BasX MC1, and they said the unit's running great, but the EmoQ doesn't bring much value. Doing his calibration, using a mini DSP for the subwoofers, using REW and the parametric EQ. Now, if you have the know-how to make all that work, that's an acceptable solution, and the results are good, so it can make up for deficiencies in the built-in room calibration. But if you really want good calibration built into it, then you're up into the next tier, where Marantz is using Odyssey, or even better yet, you've got the XMC2 and the AVM70 using Dirac and Arc Genesis respectively, which are going to give you top tier performance in that. Looking at the DACs, now I have yet to confirm solidly the Emotiva, but I'm very close to kind of calling it for a Cirrus Logic chip, just like ToneWinner and Iota VX are using. They're all using the Cirrus Logic CS42528 chip, which is an 8-channel chip. So if you have 2 of them, you got there's your 16 channels of processing. You know, this gets decent signal-to-noise ratios up there, but not at the caliber that a Anthem is using, or the XMC2, but pretty good numbers. The chip itself has DSD capabilities, but looking at the actual output of these under $2,000 models, none of them claim DSD support. They're all PCM conversion 24192. The Emotiva manual does call out that through the USB port, it's only 16-bit 48 kilohertz on the digital to analog and PCM conversion. The specs are pretty sparing on this. Most of them talk about direct mode as far as Iota VX and ToneWinner, but they're a little inconsistent on how they report it. So again, I use that only as a guide, but the output specification are generally lower on these than on the next tier up, right? So you're going to get some of the best values from Emotiva and Anthem as far as output specifications. Although Emotiva doesn't publish on theirs. For the I/O, you're getting 6 channels of HDMI input, 2 channels out. These are all 4K models on the under 2000 level. You get an extra HDMI with the upper class there. The SPDIF outputs are 2 and 2 for coax and optical. There is no output for those optical or coax signals. You're not going to get any of the fancy ESBU type of digital multi-channel capabilities. What it does give you is 13.4 in your XLR and for RCA, which is the most of these under $2,000 models. It doesn't give you multi-channel in. The only one that we're seeing multi-channel in at this level is the ToneWinner AT300, which gives you 5.1 in. In fact, that's kind of rare in these days. The only other model in this lineup is the Marantz AV7706, is actually a full 7.1 input for your multi-channel in. There is no 2-channel input on any of these entry-level models. And for analog inputs, you've only got 3 on the Iota VX versus 4 on the ToneWinner and the Emotiva. Now, we will say ToneWinner is a shared input, so you either using your 5.1 If you don't want to use your 5.1, then you actually get 4 analog inputs. So just keep that in mind, that that's shared with that 5.1 input. But it's the only one with the 5.1 input at this price point. They all give you a zone output, which is analog, and none of them have a built-in phono preamp on that. You either have to go to the Anthem or the Marantz AV7706 for that, and it's a moving magnet only on that product. So that covers it for the built-in I/O. Doing a deeper dive into the HDMI, as I said, only the Marantz AV7706 is going to give you the 8K capability and the various feature sets that go with it. For the rest of them, we are 4K 60, and they are 6 channels in, 2 channels out on these models, which do give you eARC, which is the only 2.1 HDMI feature that these possess. Does have HDR capability, but you're not going to see hybrid log gamma or HDR10 plus advertised on it. Now they all have Dolby Vision, but for IMAX you're only going to get that with Marantz or Anthem. These entry-level models, none of them have a physical LAN or Ethernet wired connection, nor do they have Wi-Fi. The only networking capability they have is through Bluetooth, and is a built into the Emotiva and ToneWinner models. And as far as Iota VX, it's an optional Bluetooth adapter that goes into the USB port. But other than that, if you want more networking capabilities, you've got to pay more for those Marantz, Emotiva, or Anthem capable products. Of course, Emotiva really is just sticking to LAN networking on that XMC2. So if you want wireless, it's Marantz or Anthem. As far as control, we don't see any voice control on these models. The only one that really extensively check all the boxes is Marantz on voice control. Without an Ethernet port, we're not doing any protocol control through the Ethernet, but it does have infrared and has an RS-232 port, so we believe there's some capabilities there, but they're not advertising any particular integration alignment with a Savant or Control4, etc., which they're pretty extensive on the other models on that availability. So, given that we don't have streaming ecosystem support on these, Emotiva in general doesn't play in this set of functions. But Marantz and Anthem do to a good extent. And as far as internet streaming, those ecosystems that Marantz and Anthem participate in will give you some of these other capabilities, but directly built into it, it's pretty sparing to have the direct internet streaming capabilities built in. As far as the remotes, these all look kind of different, except for the Iota VX and the ToneWinner appear to be just about the same. The color is a little different. I can only get this grab from the ToneWinner manual, but it does give you a sense for the layout is common. Emotiva's gone to this new design with the MC1, which no one seemed to have any love for the one that came with the XMC2, which had kind of these clicky buttons. And that kind of gives you an idea of what's going on there. As far as the physical dimensions, the depth and the height vary between these under $2,000 models, although they seem to be sharing production facilities. They do have different chassis that are different sizes, although the design is kind of similar. Can't get a power consumption for Emotiva models or Iota VX, but these usually come in around 50-60 watts of power consumption. The Emotiva BasX MC1 is the lightest at 10 pounds, 4.5 kilograms, while a little smaller than the Iota VX AVX17. The ToneWinner AT300 is a little heavier than the Iota VX at 14.3 pounds, 6.5 kilograms versus 12.4 pounds, 5.6 kilograms. Of course, when you go up to the next class up, you almost double the weight of those. So there's definitely heftier units for paying the extra $1,000 to $2,000 for the next class up. Cosmetically, these all look a little different. They have the design language of the respective brand, but they all utilize the similar dot matrix two-line type display. So it's not one of the more modern touch screens with the large display and color capabilities, and graphics capabilities. So that's what you get at this price point currently here. We were unable to acquire a screenshot for the new AVX17 for Iota VX, but we suspect they're very similar to ToneWinner and Emotiva. As you can see here, the menus that come with those look the same except for some font changes. Maybe the wording is a little different, but basically the same layout. When it comes to like the calibration screens and everything, we had to go back to a prior generation, the AVX1, which is shown here. And then similarly for the Emotiva, also we could find was a screenshot for the BasX MC700, which is shown. The ToneWinner is an actual screen capture of the current generation for the AT300. So that gives you a little bit of a background there on the graphics. Well, that wraps it up for this review of the Iota AVX17. And so what did you think? Are you interested in this class of product? I hear there is a lot of interest here. You've got those who want to get into immersive with a lot of channels, but don't want to spend a lot of money. They don't want a receiver. They already have amplifiers. So they're out of the receiver class. And this introduces the first product at this price point with 4 independent subwoofer outputs. This is kind of game-changing. I'd like to see more products in the market go 4-channel subwoofers. I know a lot of you are going beyond 1, 2 subwoofers and doing one in each corner. And so that's exciting. But you need a processor that's going to be able to handle it well versus doing the parallel thing. So this could be a good option for you, but you do lose features like the Aural 3D and the DTS:X Pro decoding. And I know some of you writing in, talking about, well, Aural 3D, you don't have a lot of content. The Auralmatic upmixer is something you would not live without. Some of you are just such great fans of that. So, you're willing to make that trade-off to save the money here. So that's some design decisions that you're going to have to make. What are your thoughts here? Are you strongly considering the under $2,000 products here that share a similar heritage and production facility? Or are you going to go with more traditional solutions from the likes of Marantz and Anthem, as well as the upper brands of the Emotiva range? That feedback would be useful to the Ripewave Audio community. And if you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe, and be sure to hit that bell icon so you'll be informed when the next video is posted. Until then, keep evolving your audio experience.